we finish out, Numbers, and still wandering in Moab, and the generation is dying off, and finally, after the 40 years, the people, all that's left of the old generation is basically, Miriam has died, Aaron has died, all that's left is Moses and Joshua and Caleb. And because of Moses' temper getting the better of him in response to the people just, being so provocative, Moses disobeys the express word of God there in Numbers, and he strikes a rock that he's supposed to speak to, and you'd think, why is that a big deal? And the apostles will later point back and say, because all of this stuff was important. Everything God said was important, and often many things were symbolically pointing to Jesus. And the rock that represented Christ had already been struck, and God didn't want it struck a second time. He just wanted him to speak to it. But Moses struck the rock, and God's like, that disqualifies you. You can't enter into my promised land, but you can see it. But the other people will go in. And so then we have the book of Deuteronomy, which is basically like the second law, or the law again. You're just like, yay, just what I wanted, more law. But really the book of Deuteronomy is so much more than just than only a regurgitation or retelling of the laws that existed, from here to here of the giving at Sinai. It's really about, it's a book that's reflecting on this whole story. And re-reflecting again, what were the important themes? So like, it's perfect, because by the time you get to Numbers, you're just like, oh man, this has just been so much. Deuteronomy is like your chance to like recap again. Wait, what has been the story? What were the things that I was supposed to get out of this story? Deuteronomy is answering those questions. And it's answering those questions for a people, for a generation now that, they grew up in this, but maybe sometimes when you're in the midst of it, like you kind of miss the details, the important details when you're living life. It's only when you take time to stop, take a breath, pause, reflect back on what God may have been up to in your life, how he had been speaking to you, the significant moments in your life, and what their significance is, not only in where you've been and where you are now, but what the trajectory is and where God may be taking you. Like that's a lot of what these first two sections of Deuteronomy are about. So in the beginning, 1 through 11, Moses is, he's not going to go in the land, but they are. So this is like his last chance, really, to address the nation of Israel as their leader. He's getting ready to step down.'s getting ready actually to die. He's at the end of his life. And this is his last chance to give one final, big, locker room speech, right? They're going to go in, they're going to go take the land. They're going to go receive the inheritance that was promised to their ancestors so long ago. They're going to do it. And he's given them this last bit pep talk, and there's things that he wants them to remember. And so you'll see when you're reading Deuteronomy, that word remember just pop up over and over and over again, because Moses and the Lord is just inviting them to pause and reflect on what these, last 40 years have been about, and even the story well before that in generations. And so one of the themes that continues to pop up as he's retelling the story is he keeps exhorting them to remember God's love, and that our participation in these the priesthood and the purity and the rituals and the feasts and all these laws and things is not about rule keeping for the sake of rule keeping, that it really is about us participating in this relationship of love with God. And that, in other words, he's saying the motivator for why you obey the commands is not because you just don't want to die or you want to get some blessing out of God. It's because God has loved you so well. This is how you love him back. This is how you express to him that you get it, that you get him. He's exposed his heart to you. How can your heart respond? It's through obeying these things. And so in chapters 1 through 11, he's kind of retelling their story. And 12 through 26, he's kind of retelling significant portions of their law. But that's really, there's a reason why the very famous Jewish prayer, the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. and you'll love the Lord our God with all of your heart, with all of your being, with all of your mind and strength, and everything that you have is found in Deuteronomy. Like that's straight from this first section here, that it is about love. Like in case you missed it with all the signs and wonders and rules and all of that, and the weird family scandals and all of that, that from God's perspective, this has always been a love story. And so remember and reflect on that and respond. If you're going to respond to anything, respond to the love of God that He's shown you in His goodness and in His character, His name that He's revealed to you as a people. So, that takes us all the way to the very end of the Torah and of the book of Deuteronomy. And so we get there, and this is like just the final, last little, this is what you're walking into, right? And Moses presents it as that you have a choice. You're at a crossroads again, just like Adam and Eve had kind of had a choice. They had a choice back in the garden. Cain had a choice. He had that pivotal moment where he was mulling over and beginning to think about, maybe even fantasize about what it might be like to do his brother in. And so many other people along the story, they were at a crossroads where they had to choose, make a pivotal choice between life and death, between blessing and curse. And Moses is like, you as a nation are on the precipice. You're right on the edge of a choice like that as you enter into this land. Because when you go into this land, if you will keep the covenant, if you will obey God's voice, oh my goodness, are you going to be blessed? Like he says, like blessing will literally chase you down and tackle you to the ground. Like it's just, you won't be able to escape the blessing of God if you'll hear and obey. But oh my, if you don't. If you, just like our ancestors did, just like your fathers and mothers did, if you turn your back on God, if you ignore His voice, if you ignore the commandments and the covenant that He's made with you, you will reap death. You will reap curse. And you will reap exile. You're going to be what God has given you in this land. What He's about to give you, you haven't even taken it yet, but God's about to give you, you'll lose it all. You'll be booted right back out again. God is able to do that if you choose death. But don't, choose life so you might live. That's His plea with the people. Now, if it was me, I'd really want to be motivating and encouraging the people. And so I'd be like, and I know you can do it, guys. And so, just trust God and all of that. But Moses is such a realist and he's so transparent with them. He's like, guys, I know, because I know myself. I'm not even going with you for a reason. And so actually, I know you're going to fail. I know you'll choose death. Even though I'm saying all this to you and I'm warning you in advance. I'm warning you in advance of what will happen if you choose disobedience and death. And I know you're going to do it anyway. You're going to. And at the end of the Torah, Moses calls out explicitly what God had said back in the beginning of Genesis about the reason why. Why is it that this is so hard? Why is it that it doesn't matter who God picks on the earth and how great or how terrible they are to begin with, that as God walks with them and reveals Himself to them, that we're just not able to stick with Him. We're not able to remain faithful to the one who's ever faithful to us. Why is it? And this is what Moses says it's in Deuteronomy 30, verse 6, such a key verse. He calls it out that the problem is our heart. It's our heart. It's always been our heart. It says, and the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your offspring so that you will love Yahweh your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. The problem is not that we need more signs and wonders. It's not that we need more laws. The problem is that we have fundamentally broken hearts that are totally bent towards rebellion and evil from our youth. And there's nothing we can do externally or even internally to ourselves to fix that. And Moses has correctly identified that this is something that God is going to have to fix. God is going to have to circumcise our hearts. Now that sounds like a weird expression. What does that even mean? You know, we didn't talk about this in the context of the story, but you know, one of the things that God gave to Abraham as a sign to make him and his descendants unique is they had the practice of circumcision, which is obviously like a removal of something from a part of the body that has to do with being fruitful and multiplying, and so it becomes a mark. It's a mark that you know most people aren't going to see, and but that you're aware of personally, each individual person. I mean, you know if you've been circumcised, and that there's something like that that's internal, that's actually spiritual. He's not talking about the organ of our heart has to be taken out and have something removed, but that it's our spiritual heart. It's the core. It's our identity of who we are. There's something there that has to be removed, and only God can come in and remove it. And Moses is promising to a people that are about to go in and rah, we're going to take the promised land and win it all and then eventually lose it all. Like he's already said this is what's going to happen. But he says, after that, after you've won the land and lost the land, and you're back in exile again. And this is part of where this whole story is headed. Just as Moses, way back at this turning point in Genesis 12, Moses was called out of Babylon to walk with God in this particular land of Israel. The people are going to end up back in Babylon. That's exactly where we're going to get exiled to. They're going to right back. The whole story is about, it seems like there's no forward movement. They're right back to where the whole thing started. And yet Moses promises, but there's something else that's going to happen. God is going to step into the story in some way. And he's going to do something to the inside of us that is going to change us forever, for those who are willing.